Shh. Hi, everybody. My name is Marilyn, and I'm here today to talk about the Hesi A2 admissions assessment. So, I'm old, hence the gray hair. I've been an LVN for a long time, and I really wanted to do the RN transition program here in Texas. But for 15 years, I have been scared of taking the Hesi, which is an understatement. So, I've scheduled the test, I canceled the test, I've rescheduled the test, thinking that I wouldn't be ready. I didn't think I was going to be able to pass. I've been out of school for a really long time. So, I was just really concerned about stuff like the math. Then when I started looking at the anatomy and physiology, I thought, I didn't learn any of that in school. So I really postponed taking the test because I was just simply scared to take the test. So I started looking at videos on YouTube, looking at everything I could about what's on the test, and I just couldn't find anything that answered the questions that I had. So I said, when I take the test, I'm going to make a video so that somebody else out there will be able to go in and take this test and not freak out like I was freaking out. So when I started preparing for the test and started looking into stuff, I bought this book, this Evolve Hesi A2 Secret Study Guide. Don't do it. Don't waste your money. Fortunately, about a month before I took the actual test, after I scheduled it and canceled it, I ended up getting this book, the book that's actually put out by the people that put out the test. And basically, this is what you need to study. You don't need to invest in a whole bunch of other books. But I also utilized one other book, and I bought it at the same time that I bought this one, and I bought them both from Walmart.com, and that was this Anatomy and Physiology Cliff Notes. It was actually really helpful. I wish I'd had it when I was actually taking A&P, because it summarizes the chapters extremely well. So I passed my Hesi. I actually did surprisingly well. My composite score was a 92.8. The things that I was worried about most when I was thinking about taking the test was the math part. Math has just never been really my strong subject. And like I said, I'd been out of school longer than most other people taking the test have even been alive. So, I was really worried about it. So what I did, and surprisingly on the math part, I made a 96. But what I did when I started to really buckle down and practice and study, I really only studied intensely for about a month to 3 weeks before the test, because I'm not a very good student. So what I did was I took the book, and I took out all of the practice test sections, and I made copies of them. So the first thing I did, I thought that the only thing I needed to study was math and the anatomy and physiology. Boy, was I wrong. So I took the practice test, and one of the subjects that I thought I would be extremely good at was grammar, and I did fairly crappy on it, simply because I didn't remember things like, what is an adjective predicate? I had no idea. I don't even know if there was a such thing when I was in school, but I know that when I took this practice test, I didn't know it. So the things that I didn't do well on the practice test are the things that I focused on studying. Same with like the math. I know how to add and subtract. That wasn't an issue, but I really needed to focus on like ratios and conversions, believe it or not, simply because I didn't remember there's 5,280 feet in a mile. Didn't remember that. It's been a long time. So I took the practice test before I even started to study, focused in on what I needed to study, and then I have a cold, excuse me. I made a list of all the subjects that I needed to study, right down to dependent clause, predicate adjective I put on here, prepositional phrase. And so basically when I went through and watched a video or utilized whatever I was going to use to try to learn that subject, I marked it off my list. And I also did all of the body systems that way. And they're going to tell you lots of stuff. It was my experience that if it was on that test, it's in this book when it comes to anatomy and physiology. The book doesn't address, there's not any information on really the ears, the eyes. So it wasn't on my list of things to study. The things that were in this book, like say for the ear, were the bones of the ear. And that was actually on my test. So those are the things I focused on. That's what I covered. And in order to cover those things, I did a couple of things. Like I said, I used this anatomy and physiology quick review, Cliff Notes. I think it was like $9 at walmart.com that I bought along with the Hesi assessment. I think it was like $32, something like that. I know I maybe spent a little over $40. So what I would do is I would go through the exam review book that they put out. I would read the review information that they had in the book. I watched Crash Course, which was great. It summarized it extremely good. I had also subscribed to an educator.com, which helped me a lot with the basic math stuff that I had forgotten, because educator.com really reviews everything and starts with the basics. So I watched a lot of, things that I was concerned about, like that fields that I'd never worked in, like endocrine. I've never really, of course I know about diabetes, who doesn't, but I'd never really worked in, with an endocrinologist. So it wasn't one of my strongest subjects. So I really watched educator.com on it. I watched the Crash Course, read the Cliff Notes, and, reviewed the exam review book. So, excuse me, I did surprisingly well. I was really happy with my score. I think hopefully it will get me in. Fingers crossed. But that's how I studied. Now, when it came to the part that I was really scared about, the math, because I'm not good at just mindless memorization. I have a really difficult time with it. I think my brain is too cluttered. I have no idea. My adult son, who's in his 20s, came over and taught me this trick I wish I had known like forever ago, which is pretty much what I learned from him is I can solve just about every math problem with cross multiplication. And I use this on almost every single question that I had on that test. Because there was a ton of percentages, I was able to use the cross multiplication. I had a lot of ratios and a lot of conversions. And basically with all, but I believe like maybe 3 or 4 questions, I used cross multiplication. And for my test, we're here in Texas, we had to take 6 sections. I took the reading, vocabulary, grammar, math, anatomy and physiology, and then we also had to take the critical thinking, and I'll talk about that in a second. I think that's all of them. The reading was, first I was kind of concerned because I thought it was going to be, I don't know, I just thought it was going to be a lot, but it wasn't bad. All the sections had 30 questions. All the sections had 50 questions except for the anatomy and physiology, which had 30 questions. And then the critical thinking also had, I believe, 30 questions. That should tell you how bad my mind is, because I took the test on the 15th and it's only the 30th. So, but yeah, the anatomy and physiology only had 30 questions. So you really kind of got to be on point with it. Whereas those other sections, when you have 50, you can, miss a few more and you'll still be okay. But anyway, back to the math part that I was concerned about, the conversions and memorizing. I learned this trick on my educator.com. I loved it. I used it a lot. For those who don't know, this big G is for your gallon. Each Q is for a quart, meaning there's 4 quarts in each gallon. Each P is for a pint, meaning there's 2 pints in each quart. And each C is for a cup, meaning there's 2 cups in each pint. So basically, I drew this out at the beginning of the test. I can look at this and I could tell you how many cups, how many ounces, because you know that there's 8 ounces in a cup, which is something I knew. I figured out a lot of my answers by just drawing this big G with the 4 Q's, the P's, and the C's. Helped immensely. Something my son's daughter taught me was this King Henry dance, merrily, lazily, gaily down center main. Because like I said, I had quite a few conversions on my test. And that's the kilo, hecto, deca, and in the middle you would put whatever measurement is that you're needing to convert. Like if you needed to convert meters to kilometers or to kilometers, you would just put your base number there, and that's how many times you would move your decimal. So I didn't have to remember how many kilos are in a meter, or I just basically utilized this and it made it really simple for me. And I also used this one for my, drug conversions, simply because, yes, I do remember this, but I did not want to freak out on the test and then, be afraid that I was going to miss something or make a mistake. And so this is my kilograms, grams, milligrams, micrograms. Basically, if you're moving up the ladder, you divide by 1,000. If you're moving down, you multiply by 1,000. Simple, easy breezy. I'm not sure. I believe what I missed on the test was actually there was one question, which there's also only one question in the practice book about Roman numerals. Now I do know my X's and my M's, but when you get all those together, I think that's one that I missed on the test because it was like 20, 14. It was a year, who knows, but I probably missed that one. So these are just a couple of simple things that really helped me on the math, which is what I was worried about the most, which is really what kept me from taking this test for 15 years. And like I said, a lot of my tests, the math part was primarily conversions and ratios. But if it's in this book, you can almost guarantee it's going to be on that test. As far as the math goes, this gives you a really good, well laid out way to study. Whereas the other book that I got, some of the stuff in there is the same, but the layout is very confusing in the other book, and it's kind of all over the place. Whereas in this book, it's just, they give you examples, they give you samples on how to work them out, and then they have practice tests at the end of each chapter. But like I said, on those, I really focused on the things that when I took the initial practice test that I did poorly on, or that I didn't get right, or that I didn't know 100%. Fractions I knew, multiplying, dividing wasn't an issue. You get to use a calculator. So that wasn't that bad. And then, like I said, same with the anatomy and physiology. And then same with the grammar. I didn't practice really anything on the vocabulary. It's, pretty cut and dry. And you don't necessarily have to have a, medical experience for that. Because, it was basic, contract. Except was in there a lot. Two, and two. Meaning TWO, TO, and TOO. And then for like the general knowledge, there was a lot of, you had to choose the correct sentence, make sure the punctuation is correct. So you just may want to, I mean, even if that is one of your stronger subjects, which I really thought that grammar, vocabulary, reading, things like that were my stronger subjects. I mean, I did do a quick review over them, and, just to, brush up on things like punctuation and, proper use of words in a sentence and all that good stuff. My test didn't have physics or any of that on it. Like I said, just strictly A&P. And then as far as the critical thinking portion, that's a new portion that our school is making, the future students take just starting this year. And it had questions, critical thinking. It would give you, say, 3 patients, and it would ask you if you have a patient who has come in that was in a car accident, abdominal pain, abdomen is hard, distended, they're in excruciating pain. You have that patient coming in. You have a patient who's just walked into the ER who's 25 years old and 6 months pregnant. And then you have a young child who is 2 years old and has a low-grade fever. Who do you take care of first? You take care of your trauma patient, hopefully. Let's see. There was, questions like that. Questions, you have an elderly patient who's being discharged home, who has dementia. What type of patient teaching? What's the most important patient teaching to do for the family? And they were pretty cut and dry. They weren't difficult. I did pretty good on that section too, considering I've been a nurse for so long. It was fairly basic stuff, but I do believe that with just minimal knowledge, common sense, even if you're not a nurse, I think that that's something most people could probably get through. I know our school only requires you have like a 750 on that section, out of like a possible 1,000. And then, let's see, anything else? I mean, I'm more than glad to answer any questions that y'all might have. I just wanted to, I'm not a video maker. Clearly my lighting is horrible. But I just wanted to put something out there for people like me who couldn't find anything that gave them the details that they needed about the test so that they wouldn't freak out. The test was really a little bit easier than what I was thinking that it would be. It was challenging. I definitely needed to study, but it wasn't so bad that I shouldn't have delayed taking it as long as I did. That was a huge mistake. But really, I was just so nervous. So I'm hoping that somebody out there sees the video and maybe they felt like I did and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And that's just essentially what I had to do. I had no choice. I just had to do it. So good luck to all of you all. Maybe I'll start talking about my transition experience if I'm able to get into the program. We don't get to, it's December the 30th today. We don't get to apply till January the 25th. But because I didn't have enough faith in myself, I did take my test early enough so I could retake it if I needed to. And I'm not going to retake it. So good luck to you all. If y'all have any questions, post them below. I'll be checking it out. I'll answer. Hopefully this helps somebody. Good luck. Bye.